Ubisoft had an absolutely brutal year in 2025. They talk shit, they did shit, the stock price was in the gutter, and they sold out. Yeah, Ubisoft is pretty much at rock bottom today, but it wasn't always like this. There were times when you actually looked forward to new releases, times when announced games were actually good, times when games were still innovative and not just a bug fest with lifeless faces, muddy graphics, a weak story, and repetitive gameplay. Hard to believe, but those times actually existed. Back then, we got the legendary Ezio trilogy, Assassin's Creed 3 and 4, and Ubisoft really delivered with some of their franchises. Add to that Far Cry 3, a game that was absolute madness back then, and I mean that literally, mainly thanks to Vas. We had action-packed gameplay, the island setting, and characters that completely sucked us in, but that was in 2012, which is just 14 fucking years ago. A lot of time has passed since then, of course, and that's exactly why I wanted to take a closer look now in 2026. How well did the game actually age? Can it still hook me today or not so much? And if you want to join me on this journey, just lean back and enjoy the video. Let's go. On November 28th, 2012, we witnessed the birth of a true masterpiece, and that's even though it came from Ubisoft. Well, back then, they actually still had it, and let's be real, we can still be truly grateful to them for that today. Far Cry 3 achieved everything a game could possibly achieve back then. Over 10 million copies were sold, and critics and players worldwide praised the game as one of the best of 2012. But the success wasn't just limited to sales numbers and awards. Far Cry 3 went deeper than that. It brought us an open world full of surprises, challenges, and stories, and simply gave us unforgettable characters like Vas, gripping moments that hold cult status to this day, and graphics that just let us completely dive into the fascinating tropical world of Southeast Asia. But we need to bring some structure to this. Let's take a closer look at this masterpiece. What made the world of Far Cry 3 feel so alive? Who are the characters that stuck with us even years later? And which moments made this game get so deeply under our skin? We'll take a look at the key characters, the story, iconic moments, the graphics, and the gameplay, and take a trip back to the roots of this masterpiece. And this journey takes us to the Rook Islands, an archipelago that couldn't look more like paradise, but is actually the exact opposite. Because here, Jason and his friends live through an absolute nightmare, and that's even though the vacation started out so promising, but a blind skydive drops the group straight into pirate territory, and this is where Ubisoft immediately slaps our antagonist right in our face.
Crazy, huh? Jumping out of airplanes, flying like birds. That is crazy. I like this phone. This is a nice fucking phone.
Vas is truly one of the most iconic figures in video game history. The guy is absolutely insane, sarcastic, and with his psychotic charisma, an absolute legend who not only pulls us players right in, but will probably haunt Jason for all eternity. He is completely unpredictable, snapping from one second to the next.
Do you want me to slice you open like I did your friend? Shut the fuck up!
Vas treats us like toys and shows us right out of the gate who's boss around here. Because Jason and his older brother Grant managed to break out of the prison, Grant takes the lead and takes out everyone who needs taking out. And right here, you immediately notice the dynamic between the two brothers. Grant is older, more experienced, and thanks to his time in the army, also the calmer of the two. In direct comparison, Jason is just way more terrified and overwhelmed. Without Grant, he would be completely screwed in this situation, so Grant is Jason's anchor. At least up to this point. Grant dies and Vas lets us run because honestly, everything just feels like a game to him.
Get the fuck out of here, you chicken fuck! Run, Forrest! Run!
He gives us a 30-second head start, which we definitely use and absolutely need because right off the bat, we are handed a pure action sequence. We're running from pirates and dogs, even killing our first pirate in self-defense, which completely overwhelms Jason. We even get shot at by a fucking helicopter until we fall off a cliff. But before we drown, we're saved by this nice guy right here named Dennis. And yeah, after just 15 minutes, we're basically served the entire story, or at least the basics. Because right at the start, we were introduced to our group of friends. We all got captured. Grant is already dead and the others were dragged off. Vas is the leader of the pirates, and Hoyt, who we also briefly saw earlier, is the leader of the human trafficking cartel on the Rook Islands. And then Dennis introduces us to another faction, because because we also get to meet the Rakyat. That's an ancient indigenous tribe led by Citra, who, by the way, just happens to be Vaas's sister. The Rakyat have been fighting against the pirates and Hoyt's men for years, and they are a highly superstitious tribe full of warriors who believe in prophecies and above all are just completely tripping balls. And yet, drugs are definitely a theme in this game because we go on quite a few trips here, and after that seriously action-packed intro, things basically just keep going right at that pace. Because even though we as Jason don't really fit into a scenario like this at all, and Grant was actually the one who fit in better since Grant brought military experience, and honestly, character-wise, in any other game he would have been the one to be the main character. He'd be the guy who knows what's up, who is absolutely jacked, knocking out pirates and just chucking throwing knives right in their faces. In any other game, we would be playing exactly this guy right here, but even this guy barely lasts a single day in the jungle, and this actually brings up an important point. Because Grant wasn't strong enough for this scenario, Jason definitely isn't either. We are not the overpowered one-man army with any kind of experience. We are the mid-20-something who hasn't even really grown up yet, suddenly getting the responsibility for his own life and the lives of his friends thrust into his hands, and that is wild because we evolve throughout the game and witness firsthand, piece by piece, how Jason loses more and more of himself and somehow goes completely insane himself.
Peekaboo, motherfucker.
First steps we take with Jason in the game are terrified and honestly pretty clumsy. We are dependent on others until we eventually reach the point where we actually do become the all-killing one-man army. So we go from an innocent rich kid who's never even held a gun, let alone hurt or killed anyone, to an absolute killing machine who just slaughters his way through hordes of pirates using takedowns, all of this just to save his friends, because that's basically our main mission right now, which actually starts to shift a bit over the course of the game. Because at the start, it's all about surviving, saving our friends, and escaping the Rook Islands, but little by little, and mainly because of Citra and the Rakyat, who take Jason into their ranks as a warrior, and of course because Jason himself is being consumed by a thirst for revenge, his focus shifts. Because purely surviving and saving his friends remains important, sure, but Jason wants to kill Vaas, Jason wants to kill Hoyt, and meanwhile Citra is seducing him the entire time, constantly telling him that he is the chosen one who will rid the island of evil, which by the way Dennis really stops being a fan of as the game goes on because he loves Citra and does everything for her. But she just prefers Jason, so I guess we'll be seeing that boy hitting the gym from now on. But honestly, screw the gym. You're better off just chilling at home and grabbing yourself a copy of Far Cry 3, discounted by my partner Instant Gaming. Just click the link down in the video description or in the pinned comment. Plus, if you're a Far Cry fan, you can generally get every installment cheaper there, and if you're looking for something completely different, Instant Gaming will have your dream game for cheaper than Steam. If a game happens to not be in stock, or if you're looking for console stuff, you can just grab their discounted gift cards. Whether it's PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, you'll save a ton here too. It doesn't matter if you're shopping for the European or the American market, Instant Gaming adapts to your region. On top of that, there's a monthly giveaway for my community where one of you can win a game of your choice. Entering is super easy, and if you win, you'll be notified via email and might even show up right here as the winner soon. Like I said, you can find all the necessary links down in the video description, and if you buy something through them, you're directly supporting me and the channel. So seriously, much love to you all. Thank you to every single supporter, good luck with the giveaway, and a huge thanks to Instant Gaming for the awesome partnership. And now, let's get back to the video. You can roughly divide Far Cry 3 into a few different phases. In the first phase, Jason is this terrified survivor who's just getting to know the island. This is also where we get introduced to the gameplay. We learn how to hunt, craft meds, and we climb radio towers for the first time, which were actually still awesome back then because the concept wasn't completely played out yet. I used to genuinely enjoy doing that and actually looked forward to crossing those towers off the map one by one. Today, it feels more like annoying busy work and is just a part of the typical Ubisoft formula. The same goes for the outposts, by the way. It's standard today, but back then they were actually really fun. So, step by step, we make progress as Jason and slowly get used to the scenario. We also meet Dr. Earnhardt, who is just permanently high. He's also looking after Daisy, who he found when she managed to escape captivity. Other than that, we're obviously following every lead that could point us to our friends, and so one lead brings us to Lisa, who is being held in a prison where Vas shoots his ransom videos. Once we get there, we quickly realize it's a trap. We get knocked out and wake up tied up in a temple. When we wake up, we see Lisa, Oliver, and Vas, who immediately gives us absolute hell. We manage to escape, and Jason is slowly starting to actually get a taste for this whole thing, while Lisa is absolutely not on board with that. After an action sequence, we bring her to the cave under Earnhardt's house, where Daisy is also waiting. By the way, she's come up with an escape plan by now because there's a boat down there, though it needs some serious repairs, but as soon as everyone is rescued, that's supposed to be our ticket off the island. And in phase 2, Jason's rush and his detachment really begin. He sets out to find Oliver and Keith. At the same time, we get a mission from Citra to retrieve something that was lost so we can be accepted into her tribe. Along the way, we experience more drug trips and visions that actually tease future events. We also meet Willis, who's operating undercover on the island for the US government to take down Hoyt. He helps us save Oliver, who we intercept during a pirate transport. For Keith, we have to deal with Buck. He's willing to hand him over, but only if we get him an old, fabled dagger that Citra also wants. So we complete several missions for Buck, raid a ship, explore temples in typical Uncharted style, and get to know him as a perverted, sneaky, and just straight up annoying creep. He's basically just constantly screwing with us and let us do his dirty work while he is somehow always being one step ahead of us. And when we finally brought him the dagger, he betrayed us. But Jason isn't having any of it, and this is exactly where the break happens. With every kill, Jason feels stronger. That initial disgust for killing turns into adrenaline and pure satisfaction. In his head, he becomes invincible, and the detachment from his old self truly begins. And every time we rescue friends and bring them back, they notice that we're changing. Lisa even tells him through tears that he's scaring her, and yeah, Jason himself actually realizes that he's enjoying the jungle and the killing and is completely losing touch with his old life. And in phase 3, Jason becomes more and more a true reflection of madness. He falls deeper and deeper under Citra's spell and swears to kill Vas. This leads to several confrontations that Jason only barely survives. In the process, we also destroy their infrastructure, ambush convoys, and of course, Jason gets captured by Vas and becomes part of his iconic insanity monologue.
Can I even tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy.
And after we somehow survive that as well, we cross paths with Vas once more, who then straight up shoots us. But of course, Jason doesn't die. Instead, he gets buried under a pile of corpses and swears revenge all over again. Parallel to all this, we become a full-fledged member of the Rakyat and experience even more trips. And after this one specific trip, we finally feel ready and infiltrate Vas's base. We play a game of cat and mouse and fight him in this completely surreal knife fight, and then we actually kill him. And the execution of this moment is just so damn cool, especially with the music and the performance. It really is just absolute peak. With Vas's death, Jason finally crosses the line for good and becomes the monster he was actually hunting. The two of them are deliberately framed as mirror images of each other, and that's exactly why I mentioned at the beginning of the video that Vas is going to haunt Jason for all eternity. Meanwhile, his friends finish fixing the boat and are ready to escape. Since every single one of them believes Riley is dead, they figure everyone is accounted for. But Jason refuses to leave and just drops Lisa, in particular, completely cold. With that, his old self dies once and for all. He sees himself entirely as a warrior of the Rakyat now. And in phase 4, we head to the South Island with Willis, and now it's all about Hoyt. On the South Island, we meet Sam Becker, who has infiltrated Hoyt's organization. And from here on out, Jason goes undercover too, throws on a mercenary uniform and tries to get close to Hoyt. And lucky for him, everyone knows the name Jason Brody, but nobody actually knows his face. During our time there, Sam turns out to be a genuinely likable character and is extremely crucial to Jason's mission. Together, we run missions for Hoyt while simultaneously sabotaging his infrastructure and earning his trust. Hoyt orders us to interrogate a prisoner, and then comes the twist. Riley is alive. And we realize way too late that it's actually Riley. And because Hoyt is watching us through the cameras, there's no way out. Jason is forced to interrogate and torture his own brother just to keep his cover from being blown. Later on, we get invited to a poker night with Hoyt, which gives us the chance to take him out. But of course, the plan goes south and Sam gets killed. Hoyt saw right through us and forces us to keep playing the poker game with our lives on the line. This leads to yet another surreal knife fight, which Jason obviously wins. We kill Hoyt, rescue Riley, and escape in a chopper. And yeah, on the South Island, Jason has truly become a cold-blooded, emotionless killer, and the whole undercover scenario perfectly showcases just how deep he's slipped into this world of violence. But when he finally reunites with Riley, a piece of his old self actually comes back. And phase 5 of the game is all about the finale. We fly to Dr. Earnhardt's house only to find him dying. Citra's warriors have kidnapped all our friends and burned the house to the ground, so now we rush over to Citra's temple where we find Lisa and the others tied up. And at this point, we get to decide for ourselves how Jason's psyche ultimately develops, because this scenario delivers the absolute climax of his psychological struggle. We get to decide who Jason is. Are we the Jason who saves his friends and wants to return to his old life? Or are we the ultimate merciless Rakyat warrior who joins Citra? For my current playthrough, I ended up choosing my friends partly because I genuinely think Daisy, Oliver, and especially the little brother Riley are pretty cool. Lisa, on the other hand, kind of just annoyed me the entire time. Yeah, I get it. She's supposed to be the voice of reason, but man, Lisa, you got seriously lucky I didn't go with Citra here because you really didn't make it easy for me. This ending is also considered as the canon ending of Far Cry 3, and it's kind of the one that makes the most sense. Jason refuses to slit his friends' throats here, frees them instead, and ultimately chooses humanity. Dennis, who fanatically worships Citra and her version of Jason, completely snaps and naturally takes the chance to kill him for this betrayal, but at the very last second, Citra throws herself in the way and takes the fatal blow. She dies in Jason's arms, so Dennis just killed the love of his life and is completely losing his mind, and somehow it's never even explained what happens to him after that. Anyways, in the other ending, we would have just killed our friends, then got it on with Citra, which back in the day, I definitely considered the better ending, mainly for two very specific reasons. Even though Citra is basically just playing the queen bee here, letting herself get knocked up only to straight up kill us right after. And yeah, that is honestly a really shitty ending. But with that, Jason's story comes to an end, and his tragic character arc is fully complete. And sure, he survives, but he is definitely scarred by the madness of the island. He might be able to leave it behind, but it will haunt him for the rest of his life. And at its core, Far Cry 3 is basically a psychological thriller disguising itself as a tropical action game, and it's actually a brilliant deconstruction of the typical hero's journey and the classic video game power fantasy. The story here truly thrives on the illusion of heroism. In the beginning, both as Jason and as the player, you believe you're carrying out this noble rescue mission, but the game actually shows you, quite ruthlessly, that you can't fight violence with more violence without breaking yourself in the process, and Jason's supposed evolution into a warrior is actually just pure moral decay. By the way, all of this is also conveyed through the loading screens, where the game displays quotes from Alice in Wonderland that serve as an incredibly strong metaphor for Jason, because he falls down the proverbial rabbit hole, the Rook Islands, which represent a surreal, isolated world where normal societal rules just don't exist. And the deeper Jason goes, the more he loses his mind. And the truly brilliant part about the story is that we, as players, are the ones being called into question. Because it's not just Jason who enjoys taking over outposts, unlocking new weapons, executing crazy takedowns, and slaughtering people. No, you are having fun with it too, and this is exactly where the game holds a mirror up to us once again. We actually enjoy Jason's downfall, so it begs the question, why do we get such a kick out of all this virtual violence? Because in the end, we don't even get a happy ending. Even in the canon ending, where Jason does the right thing and saves his friends, he has become an alienated, traumatized killer who will never be able to function in his old life in LA again. And that is exactly why I think Far Cry 3 still stands as one of the absolute narrative peaks in video game history today, because it had the guts to let its protagonist fail, not physically, but morally. At its core, the whole thing is a fascinating study study on trauma, the rush, adrenaline, and pure insanity. Sure, the story has its flaws, is heavily padded with plot armor in places, and isn't exactly perfect, but the pacing just works. There were just so many epic moments in this game, and of course for me, the encounters with Vaz easily take the #1 spot. Michael Mando, who a lot of people know from Better Call Saul, absolutely killed it here back in 2012. My personal highlights were also the missions with Buck. Exploring the ancient temples was just absolutely badass too. And then through the Rakyat, we get this trippy mix of mythology and magic that fits in surprisingly well. Technically speaking, the game holds up amazingly well too. The Classic Edition, which just randomly got a 60 FPS update for consoles now in 2026, honestly still looks really solid today. The controls are solid, and thanks to the 60 frames per second, everything runs really smoothly, but honestly, I didn't think the gameplay was all that great. It just feels kinda janky and imprecise at times. There were also a few missions that seriously got on my nerves. On top of that, I experienced some really cheap deaths, and the checkpoints were sometimes way too far apart. I found the pacing of those defense missions especially weird. First, you're gunning down hordes of enemies, and then there's just this awkward pause where absolutely nothing happens. Unfortunately, this type of mission popped up way too often, like with Willis for example, where we have to cover him while he fixes the plane, or that shitty mission with Sam where we have to plant explosives in 4 different spots. Yeah, I really wasn't a fan of those missions. But overall, the game completely hooked me again, which I really didn't expect. Older games often feel way too outdated for me. Like, I'll still recognize their charm and remember how they made me feel back in the day, but from a gameplay perspective, I sometimes just can't really enjoy them anymore nowadays. But here, it was a completely different story. Aside from a few annoying missions, the experience was incredibly strong, and except for a few minor bugs, everything ran buttery smooth. I can genuinely recommend everyone to play through this game again, even now in 2026, especially if you've never played it before. It is absolutely worth it. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. If you enjoyed my very first video, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments what you thought of Far Cry 3 and if I should make a video on Far Cry 4 next. And now, there's really nothing left to say. Bye.